For thousands of years, the few have used knowledge as power to control the many and profit from their ignorance. Over hundreds of generations, the masses have outsourced their thinking and unquestioningly consumed products of deception. Today, as a result, the non-elected rulers continue to persuade us to adopt their limited perspectives. This series resurrects your curiosity and broadens your awareness so you can learn how to read between the lies. This is what you've been missing.
The goal of this series is to provide you with the tools to understand the world in which we all live, so we can learn to survive and thrive in life. Greetings and welcome. I'm your host, Richard Grove, and I'd like to begin by employing metaphor, using this box to represent the status quo, so as to illustrate that this series was created to present you with the myriad of media which describes the world from the outside of this box, whereupon we criticize and review it, like this. What you've been missing is an educational exploration designed to stimulate you and your potential, to resurrect your curiosity, and to inspire you to think critically so your decision making and realization of enjoyment in life goes off the charts. Submitted for your approval, this is the episode pilot of What You've Been Missing, titled Exposing the Noble Lie. We've got a lot to catch up on, and here's why. Our research over the past 7 years has uncovered the following 3 facts. 1, that the systematic form of critical thinking upon which the Western world was built was taken out of our education system in the 19th century. 2, as a consequence of our education system being censored, those of us born in the 20th century were easily shaped, conditioned, and manipulated by sophisticated forms of propaganda and public relations, leaving us in a world based on illusions of knowledge and not actually knowledge itself. And 3, as a consequence of points 1 and 2, those of us inhabiting the 21st century are faced with problems that seem to be unsolvable and pressures and responsibilities for which we are not educated to be successful at resolving.
There is a curse on mankind. It is a curse so well known that we never talk about it, we never discuss it. It is a curse that says that you and yours will never rise. Your grandchildren are serfs, their grandchildren will be serfs. You are a shoemaker, your grandchildren will be shoemakers. And my heel will always be on your neck. Until America said, now wait a minute. If you're lucky, if you've got guts, if you can take the crap that life throws at you, if you can get here, you might rise.
Hey, Mr. Pants. Come on in, Mr. Pants. Pants.
It's hard to say why that particular bullet was shot, but you know, it's a neighborhood where a lot of things are changing, where a lot of people are upset, where people have been pushed out of their homes by real estate value, not being able to pay the taxes, whatever else. You know, I've tried to think about it. I've tried to think about if I were out there and someone else were in here, what would cause me to be resentful or envious.
The south side of Chicago is one of the poorest inner city communities in America. But now rich people are moving in and creating some serious changes in the neighborhood.
What used to be housing projects are suddenly condos, and you wonder what impact you're having on the city and who lives here, who can afford to live here. Three big tools have been used in a lot of areas. First, you build a big police station. Secondly, you tear out all the basketball courts. And lastly, if there's a local public school that poor people attend, you tear down the school.
This land is worth more than what the niggas over here can give them. So What can you do with them? Displace them, and the ones that you don't want over here, you get rid of them. You get rid of them. You know, and what you use as an excuse, use the drug dealers, use the cocaine habits. This is my son. Come here. This is my son.
Do you feel like your kids have an opportunity to get rich in this country?
Hell no. Hell no. They ain't no rappers. My kids ain't gonna be rappers. They ain't gonna be rich.
It's easier to just cleanse the earth of these people, send them to the far reaches of the universe, and the mayor's office will build a big police station, build a bunch of townhouses, the yuppies will buy in and bourgeoify it, and suddenly we'll have a community. Yeah, there'll be a bunch of people displaced. Yeah, there'll be a bunch of crime problems, but it's easier. We found the easy solution.
Charles Darwin did not invent the term survival of the fittest. That was Herbert Spencer, a social Darwinist who thought that if we just allowed the rich to get richer, that was good for society because we want to discourage the poor from having a lot of children and basically surviving. That kind of social Darwinist notion has stayed alive in certain quarters, and I believe that it is there behind much of the economic policies we are now seeing.
This is Erica Goldson, and unlike the valedictorian of your high school class, she's got something to say which I think you should hear.
Hey, this is Erica Goldson.
No, I just said that. Play the part where she proves that she's outgrown her provisional self-esteem.
I have no clue about what I want to do with my life. I have no interest because I saw every subject as a study, as work, and I excelled at every subject just for the purpose of excelling and not learning. And quite frankly, I'm very scared. John Taylor Gatto, a retired school teacher and activist critical of compulsory schooling, asserts, "We could encourage the best qualities of youthfulness, curiosity, adventure, resilience, the capacity for surprising insight simply by being more flexible about time, texts, and tests, by introducing kids into truly competent adults, and by giving each student what autonomy he or she needs in order to take a risk every now and then." But we don't do that. Between these cinder block walls, we are all expected to be the same. We are trained to ace every standardized test, and those who deviate and see light through a different lens are worthless to the scheme of public education, and therefore viewed with contempt. H.L. Mencken wrote in the American Mercury for April 1924 that the aim of public education is not to fill the young of the species with knowledge and awaken their intelligence. Nothing could be further from the truth. The aim is simply to reduce as many individuals as possible to the same safe level, to breed and train a standardized citizenry, to put down dissent and originality. That is the aim in the United States. To illustrate this idea, doesn't it perturb you to learn about the idea of critical thinking? Is there really such a thing as uncritically thinking? To think is to process information in order to form an opinion. But if we are not critical when processing this information, are we really thinking? Or are we mindlessly accepting other opinions as truth? I must retrain myself and constantly remember how insane this ostensibly same place really is. And now here I am in a world guided by fear, a world suppressing the uniqueness that lies inside each of us. A world where we can either acquiesce to the inhuman nonsense of corporatism and materialism or insist on change. We are not enlivened by an educational system that clandestinely sets us up for jobs that could be automated, for work that need not be done, for enslavement without fervency for meaningful achievement. We have no choices in life when money is our motivational force. Our motivational force ought to be passion, but this is lost from the moment we step into a system that trains us rather than inspires us. We are more than robotic bookshelves, conditioned to blurt out facts we were taught in school. We are all very special. Every human on this planet is very special. So aren't we all deserving of something better? Of using our minds for innovation rather than memorization, for creativity rather than futile activity, for rumination rather than stagnation? We are not here to get a degree to then get a job so we can consume industry-approved placation after placation. There is more and more still. The saddest part is that the majority of students don't have the opportunity to reflect as I did. The majority of students are put through the same brainwashing techniques in order to create a complacent labor force working in the interests of large corporations and secretive government. And worst of all, they are completely unaware of it. I will never be able to turn back these 18 years. I can't run away to another country with a different education system, perhaps meant to enlighten rather than condition. This part of my life is over, and I want to make sure that no other child will have his or her potential suppressed by powers meant to exploit and control.
It's as if she's describing, what's that phrase?
What we've got here is failure to communicate.
It would then appear that to solve the problems that we all face as human beings, we need to do some learning, communicating, and collaborating. So let's start to figure out how we can apply our minds and a systematic form of critical thinking to start solving our problems so that we can have less of this.
Depopulation should be the highest priority of foreign policy towards the Third World. Henry Kissinger, 1974.
There's a need for a new world order.
And more of this.
From the time of the cavemen all the way until today, humanity continues to exist because each generation of people has produced another generation to replace itself. Scientists have figured out how many people need to be born each generation to replace the generation before. That number is 1 person per person. All things being equal, this creates perfect demographic balance. Since women are the only ones who can have children, replacing every person on Earth means each woman needs to have 2 children, one to replace her, and the other to replace the man, who cannot have children. The total fertility rate is the average number of children each woman in a society is having. This number shows us if a society is growing or shrinking. In developed countries, the replacement rate birth rate is 2.1 children per woman. This will keep the population stable, but even that is assuming that every woman has children, and that there are no wars, famines, or disease. In the real world, disasters happen all the time, and sadly not all children reach adulthood, especially in poor countries. This pushes their replacement rate up to 3.3 children per woman. Since not every woman wants to have children, in order to keep the population stable, some women need to have more than 2.1 children to balance the birth rate with the women who are only having 1 or no children at all. Maintaining this balance is of the utmost importance. If society does not at least replace itself every generation, human numbers begin to fall exponentially. Economic and social problems appear as elderly people retiring begin to outnumber young people entering the workplace. This is already happening all over the developed world. Many of the world's nations are only barely replacing themselves, while a growing majority have birth rates below replacement, some as low as 1.8 or even 1.2 babies per woman. Many societies are facing a very real danger: extinction.
But it's more of a balance of things. What, like food, some part of the world there's wastage of food, and in some parts, nobody has food. That kind of a balance, if that is solved, I don't think we would be worried so much about overpopulation.
I think it's a bit of a joke the way people have made this overpopulation thing into a kind of myth. I don't really believe it, I think whatever happens will balance itself out and work itself out. It's all right for us all living saying, oh, well, there's enough of us, so we won't have any more. Don't let anybody else live. I don't believe in that. I think we've got enough food and money to feed everybody. And I think the natural balance, even though old people will last longer, I'm sure there's enough room for us, and some of them can go to the moon anyway.
You mean you think there's enough if it were
I don't believe overpopulation, I think that's just a kind of myth that the government have thrown out to keep your mind off Vietnam and Ireland and all the important subjects.
Oh, I think you're wrong about that.
Oh, I don't care.
Yeah.